Alright, so this is it right here. The 5x5x7 made from the Shengshao 7x7 with Twisty Tex's 3D printed extensions. No magic tricks today. Wait, there's a broadcast coming in. The producers have a clip. It shows my face? Let's roll it. I'm very pleased to demonstrate this puzzle for you today. I hope to show you some of the steps I took in building it and encourage you to get into puzzle modding. If you like collecting and solving puzzles, the next logical step is to make your own, and it's so much fun and it's a rewarding process. So I hope you like the video. This is a project I've recently started working on. The base puzzle is a Shengshao 7x7, and I'm putting extensions on it to make a 5x5x7. And these extensions were designed by Twisty Tex, and I'm hoping that this project goes well. So far I've only glued on the extensions for the corner pieces. The extensions are only going on opposite sides. On the top here I have extensions that cover up these pieces, little extensions for the centers, and that'll cover this layer and this layer. And so far so good. I used a bookshelf, and I placed the puzzle in the corner of my bookshelf, added the super glue to the pieces, and then also put this corner extension in the bookshelf and slid the two pieces together to ensure that it was flush right here. I may have difficulty when I need to sand this corner because for some reason, you know, when I printed these I wasn't thinking about that, and now I'm concerned that when I do try to round these corners some more, I'll break through this edge and expose the center of this extension piece because my walls are too thin. I need to print with thicker layers. It only takes a little bit more time. I'm learning how to be patient with these puzzles. I do plan to fill the gaps with epoxy sculpt and sand it, and this puzzle is going to be kind of a test run because I have another 7x7 that I'm wanting to make a 3x5x7 bump cube or mirror cube. So far my method of lining it up with the bookshelf has worked really well. I mean, these pieces really are flush and they fit perfectly, so I'm excited about that. I am halfway done finishing the pieces on this 5x5x7. These 3D extensions were designed by Twisty Tex to fit the Shengshao 7x7, and they're fitting beautifully. I'm going to show you what the pieces look like, and then I'm going to assemble the puzzle. And so half of the puzzle will be finished. It'll be completely assembled, half will be finished, and half will just have the extensions glued on, and I'll show you what that looks like. This whole thing right here is just me being weird. If you've seen Nathan Wilson's videos or anyone else's videos when they cut down or are making a puzzle like this, they'll completely disassemble it and it just looks like it disintegrates into a million pieces. It's pretty scary. So let me show you what some edge pieces look like first of all that don't have any 3D printed extensions, and these are just going to be going here on the puzzle until we get to the last layer. And this is just using epoxy sculpt and sandpaper. I don't know if the camera's focusing very well on these pieces. Yeah, right there, there's the sweet spot. So the sandpaper I'm using right now, I'm using a 150 grit, which does a really good job at grinding down the epoxy sculpt. And then I'm using 400 grit, and then I'm finishing off with like a Scotch-Brite pad, steel wool pad, and that's it. I'm experimenting with some different sandpaper too. I recently bought some 800 grit and something like, I think it was 220 or 320, but I'm trying to find the sweet spot for sanding. Alright, so show you all these pieces with the 3D printed extensions. This is only half the pieces of the puzzle. And it really is a labor of love because my shoulder hurts from sanding all these pieces. And it takes a long time. I try to do a few each day. The filling of the pieces doesn't take very long. So let me show you a corner piece. So this is 4 pieces of the original puzzle with a 3D printed extension on the top. It's important to round off these corners. I was worried I didn't print the pieces thick enough, but I did not break through a wall. I did not use a belt sander, especially with it on. That would be insane. I was only concerned with filling this edge, this part of the puzzle that was being exposed, and not this part. I made sure to round off and sand these internal edges, and everything's really flush. Twisty Tex did an excellent job of designing these 3D printed extensions to fit perfectly. And I had said before, I was using my bookshelf to fit the pieces and to glue them together so that they would be flush with each other, and that's really important. And so it looks good. And I will say that when Twisty Tex makes these puzzles, he goes through several steps of sanding, and even using, here's some centerpieces, even using oil to darken the plastic, and then removing the grease with isopropyl alcohol. I'm sure during his sanding steps too, he uses cloth, which would work very well. It's very time consuming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble this and show you what it looks like so far. I've reassembled the puzzle. As you can see, everything above here has the finished pieces on it, including these edge pieces without the 3D extensions, and then this top layer. And you can see where the 3D printed extensions were all along the top. It's not perfect, but it's really good. And I think that's important to know, that it doesn't have to be perfect. It only has to satisfy you. So I'm satisfied. You can, if you look closely, you can see where it's just a little scratchy. It's just a little rough, but that's not bad. I had thought about just using super glue on these inner edge pieces, but the fact that I'm already putting so much effort into this puzzle, I had to fill the cracks with epoxy sculpt and sand it down to give the puzzle a cleaner look. There's no particular reason why I still have stickers on it. Sometimes I leave stickers because I just use them. So here's the side that's unfinished. And it's this large gap right here that's important to fill with epoxy sculpt. Some puzzles with extensions have a wall that will come over and cover the puzzle. And then you wouldn't really need epoxy sculpt. But for a puzzle like this where the extensions just sit on top, you do. As you can see, these extensions fit so well. I mean, there's like hardly any room. It still turns like just fine. I mean, really as well as the base puzzle turns. And since I've sanded these pieces, there won't be that swooshing noise that these pieces are making when they rub against each other like that. It's just not a problem. Yeah. And you know, it will be a shape changing puzzle, so that's really cool that it's a pretty relative 5x5x7. And once I finish the other half of the puzzle and sticker it, it will be excellent. I finally finished assembling this 5x5x7. It has taken me a long time and it's been worth it. I want to show you the second half of the puzzle I completed recently, how my technique improved a little bit from the first half. Here's the first half of the puzzle I did, and if you look at those centers, they're not very close fitting. I was rounding off a lot of the edges, and then when I got to here, I wasn't going as hard on the sandpaper. It does take a lot of sanding to remove the layer marks, 3D printed extensions. And you'll notice there's a gap between all the pieces, and that's from sanding. These extensions fit beautifully, and I'm really happy with the way this puzzle has turned out. If you look closely, you can see where I've filled the pieces. Let's take a look inside here. I only used epoxy sculpt really on the outside of the puzzle, and which worked perfectly because the pieces fit so flush that you hardly need to use it on the inside of the puzzle. I sanded the inside of every piece so it wouldn't make that 3D printed wispy whooshing noise. I'll show you. So here are some of the centers, the inside of them. All that's left to do now is sticker the puzzle, and I got these stickers from Chewy's Custom Stickers. Beautiful stickers, fit perfectly every time. He prints them out, cuts them out just as I've designed them to the exact dimensions I give him. So if anything doesn't fit, it's all on me. But I'm happy going with these traditional color schemes lately. I'm gonna sticker the puzzle and come back. So after some hard work and patience, it's finally finished. And the stickers from Chewy's Custom Stickers really make this puzzle look excellent. I had an idea to wipe off the surface and put on the stickers straight and neatly. Imagine that. And it came out so good. You can see with the light the surface of the puzzle. One of the difficulties was rounding these edges. They're not all perfect. Some of them have a much rounder edge here, and then the radius of the edge gets smaller towards the top where the 3D printed extension is, because I didn't want to sand it too much in case I broke through. I wanted to talk to you about some of the settings I've used. I thought I'd take a break from these puzzles that take a lot of time and energy. But what do? I go to my 3D printer and I start printing this. And this is extensions for a mirror 3x5x7, the bump 3x5x7. So I'll tell you about some of the settings I used, because this came out really well. If you can see the surface finish on this, it's excellent. And I don't know if that's because I updated to Cura 4.71 or what, but I'll tell you some of the settings I use. It's a 0.2 millimeter layer height. I use a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. It's important to have your bed leveled and your belts tight. The bed is a heated glass bed. I think it has a chemical treatment that helps it stick, but I use salt water. I put salt water on the bed and let it dry, and the plastic seems to adhere really well to that. I know some people use blue tape, spray paint, glue sticks, etc. I was really happy with this print because the corners have very minimal warping. Oftentimes sharp corners start to come up off the print bed, and this was really good. And I used similar print settings when I made the extensions for this. And a lot of the settings are the default settings that are in Cura. The speed is 50. 50 watt? I'm not sure. My layer height, I said it was 0.2, and the layer width is normally 0.4, but I do 0.45, which I feel like gives it that little extra squish. And since the walls are 2 layers, that's a 0.9 millimeter wall thickness. Let me think here. Yeah, the settings are pretty default settings. 15% infill I find is good. This is PLA. I print it with a brim. That's why the pieces are all stuck together like this. Definitely keeps them organized because they are of different sizes. And cooling, I used a 70% fan, and starting at about layer 5 or 6 is when the fan kicks into that full 70%. Anyways, this is not what this video is about, but I wanted to show you these extensions and how they look, and this will be in a video much further in the future. Anyways, yeah, so there's no evidence that these pieces were 3D printed. You can tell by the sound of the puzzle that it doesn't make that whooshing noise. Definitely a smooth moving puzzle. The 7x7 I used felt a little stiff. The extensions don't hinder that at all. I want to scramble this, and I'm sure that the solve is pretty straightforward. I think the solve would be to solve the 5x5 centers, pair the 5x5 edges, and then do a few algorithms to reduce and solve the rest of the puzzle. So first I'll, just make some 180-degree turns, retaining the shape of the puzzle. Actually, some 90-degree turns on that will be sufficient. I'm hoping that I will print and demonstrate more of Twisty Tex's 3D printed extensions. It's so fun getting into puzzle modding. It's amazing how much time has gone by since the outbreak, because that's when I started modding puzzles, and I've already come a long way since then. And so now I'll start the kind of the 5x5 solve. You can see these extensions sticking out. I've noticed too that just the oil from my hand and lube I've used on the puzzle helps darken the pieces. Wow. That's so neat. I am loving this puzzle. So that's good. So some of his other 3D printed extensions I want to make include and I was thinking of taking those extensions and obviously putting them on the puzzle, but then bandaging it into a 4x4x2 mirror cube, bandaging it into an AI mirror cube. When I make the 3x5x7, I'm wondering if I want to sand and finish it completely. One thing I noticed is that the other layers on the 3x5x7 mirror cube don't have these completely enclosed corners, which leads me to believe that one of the faces is completely exposed, and so that'll take some filling. So if I need to fill and sand that, I may have to sand the rest of the pieces, and I will think about if I just need to sand the outside of these pieces and maybe avoid the inner edges, so when I fit everything, it'll fit really well. I don't know. Usually when I do a project like this, my thinking and my process changes during it. I figure out new things. Maybe I'll make it and then I'll think, oh, I should have done that differently. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video and continue to watch as I make more puzzles. Thank you.